I'm Kristin.
And I'm Alex, and you're listening to the Tools of the Trade podcast.
Welcome, please welcome
to another episode of the Tools of the Trade podcast, your number one construction industry resource. Hear conversations with industry professionals to get the tools, stories, and advice that you need to set your career on fire. You're now streaming the Tools of the Trade podcast.
Hey guys, before I introduce today's guest, I want to talk to you about our sponsor, Company Cam. Company Cam is your project photo organization solution, bar none, hands down, 100%. Every photo and video that your crews take at a job is now automatically organized by location and instantly synced from the field to wherever you are. Now you'll know exactly what's happening across your company, be able to communicate more effectively, and cover your butt from future claims. You can document your jobs, communicate with your crews, and protect your company all with Company Cam, the only app that every contractor needs. This app has been battle tested by me. I use it on my jobs as a project manager. Many guests on this podcast have also used Company Cam to organize their project photos, and it truly is your one-stop shop solution for organizing your company and your company photos. Company Cam is also now totally free. Believe it or not, if you want to take advantage of their free account, which is 3 users and up to 50 projects, you can head over to companycam.com/tools. You can upgrade at any time. Sign up is quick, it's easy, and no credit card is required. So you can start right now. To discover which plan fits your needs and to get your company started, head over again to companycam.com/tools to get your photos organized and take back control of your project photo organization. Hey, remember when that was a thing? Hey, we used to text that. I feel like maybe they still do in high school. I don't know. I'm out of touch. I'm digressing here. Welcome to episode number 32 of the Tools of the Trade podcast. If you haven't heard my voice before, I'm your host, Colin Toop, and as always, it is my job to interview construction professionals to extract the stories you want and the tools that you need to set your career on fire, while also bringing to light some of the barriers and issues we face as an industry, and really just having conversations around all of that stuff to drive as much value as possible for you. Tools of the Trade recently has been getting a lot of traction on social, on the charts, on the reviews. It's awesome that you guys are participating in the conversation. I sincerely appreciate all of you. And thank you to all my amazing guests for contributing your stories. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And if you haven't had a chance to review this podcast, I would sincerely appreciate it if you would. It really helps Tools of the Trade gain more exposure in the charts, which then allows me to continue to produce this content and focus on getting more amazing guests for your listening pleasure. To do it, all that you have to do is head back into the app, whatever app you're listening to this show on right now, leave a rating and a couple of words about how this podcast has helped you in your construction career or something that you have learned from one of these conversations. And if you do, thank you so much for leaving that review. And all of you, thank you so much for your continued support of this show. Today's guest, or I should say guest really, it's my first three-way conversation, believe it or not, on the podcast, is the CEO and the CPO of Southwest Industrial Electric, Kristin and Alix. Southwest is an industrial electrical contractor out of sunny Los Angeles, California, that has been in the business of solving unique electrical problems for 40 years while hitting the Inc. 5000 lists for most successful private companies 2 years in a row in 2018 and 2019, which is quite a feat. They specialize in maintenance, service, and installations for some of the most cutting-edge facilities and businesses in the USA. In a small way, Southwest recently assisted SpaceX with what they would call a small project, but whether they admit it or not, it was most likely a cog in the wheel for SpaceX's recent mission to the space station, which I thought was pretty cool, and maybe it's a small job, but to me it was super impressive. And although they have an impressive tenure in the industry and have worked on some really cool projects, it was their diverse and upbeat culture and the dedication to training their employees that really piqued my curiosity, which we talk about at length. And I found that through social media. They had really good exposure to all of that inner workings of their business, and it lit a flame underneath me, and I had to talk to them, and it was a fantastic conversation. You're going to love it. Some of the key topics we discussed in this episode were how Kristin and Alix ended up in C-suite positions, so CEO, CPO, within their organization, and what Kristin's experience has been like as a female CEO in the construction industry, how they achieve constant workflow while working on a project basis, a struggle that most of us as contractors will run into or have run into, how they have grown so much and established such a large and solid footing, how COVID has affected their operations and lessons that they have learned through this global pandemic, and how they promote their leadership from within. To get in touch with Southwest, you can visit them on the web at southwestelectric.com or go over and check out their awesome culture and training, which they have on YouTube and social media. And links to all of that is available on toolspodcast.com/Southwest. Now, please join me in welcoming my friends south of the border, Alix and Kristin. Kristin and Alix, guys, thank you so much for joining me on Tools of the Trade.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
You guys are so welcome. I've been looking forward to this interview. You popped up on my radar, let's say about 3 or 4 months ago, maybe, when I was kind of halfway through my tenure so far with the podcast. And obviously I'm an electrician, so I feel that we're going to have a good pairing here and have a lot to relate to, which is awesome. And I know that you guys have an unreal story. I'm really stoked to get into it. But because there's two of you, obviously you're going to be able to delineate because one of you is a man and one of you is a woman. But I thought that we could just start with getting some intros, who you guys are, what your titles are, so to speak, within the company, just so people get a feel of who they're listening to right now.
Sure, yeah, I'll go first. I'm Kristin, and I'm the CEO of the company. So yeah, my job is basically overseeing everything and making sure things run smoothly and everyone's doing well. And yeah, my main thing.
And I am Alix. I'm the CPO, so Chief Production Officer. My main duty is pretty much anything having to do with production. So that's all the electricians in the field, overseeing all the jobs. Once they're turned over from sales, it's in my zone. So that's where I kind of take over and make sure everything gets finished and complete. And there you go.
Awesome. So now that we understand who you are, let's get into what Southwest Industrial Electric really specializes in. What's your bread and butter? What do you guys actually do?
So we are a commercial and industrial electrical contractor. We mainly work for businesses in all various fields, manufacturing, distributing, aerospace, you name it. And we'll do a lot of large projects, but we also have a service department that handles service calls. We troubleshoot machinery, which is a little different. So a customer can call us with a machine that's not working, and we have a department that will come out there and troubleshoot it and get it working. And that's big for us. We actually usually earn a lot of business through that department, and then that will turn into bigger projects that we do because of how well we do on it. And we also work for general contractors, but that's usually more of a relationship-based thing where we've met them through other companies. And so then we start to work with them and form a relationship that way. But that's probably a smaller percentage compared to how much we're doing directly for companies.
If you're doing a favor for a GC or a relationship that you have, what kind of work would that be?
It will be anything from like tenant improvements to new factories. We work with a lot of contractors that do more specialized work. So, for example, there's a company we work for that makes these specialized skids where they have equipment on them. We'll come wire up the whole skid for them. And that's also turned into factories that have whole process systems, and we'll come out and do the electrical for that.
Very cool. So where are you guys based out of? For people listening, where do you guys operate?
So,
All town of Los Angeles. Might have heard it.
Los Angeles, California. We mostly service Southern California, but we do go all over California and do projects out of state as well. We're licensed in Arizona, and we're currently working on expanding into Texas and Nevada as the next states as we continue to have opportunities that come up in those states. So we're working out how to get out there.
It's funny when I saw that you guys were from LA. I don't know if this is just a personal thing, but LA is kind of up on a pedestal for me, at least. And I think maybe a lot of people, you hear like LA, California, Hollywood, you think it's, oh, these guys, they've got this crazy company down there. And I was so stoked to have you on, and I still am. And it's just funny that it's one of those things you have in the back of your mind, because I've been to LA, I've been to California. I think it's amazing. I love it down there. I'm from the West Coast as well, originally in Vancouver, but it's just funny that you get that in the back of your mind, like, oh, they're from LA, like must be fancy down there.
Well, the funny thing about being in LA, like the amount of customers we have in actually downtown LA is not that much. It's mostly there's huge industrial areas around downtown that has a lot of manufacturing and a lot of bigger spaces. But we're actually finding a lot of our customers that need the bigger buildings are going further and further and further away,
Yeah.
where job sites are starting to be an hour away, 2 hours away, because that's where all the land is. You got to kind of get outside a little bit to get a big building now.
Cool. So there's one question that I wanted to kind of bake into another here, and we talked about it before, and you've kind of already talked about who your core customers are. But what would you say comprises your customer base? Like, what types of projects are you doing most frequently?
I would say we most frequently do essentially the general requirements for a machine install. So usually what it's going to be is we're going to be running power feeds to various distribution panels and stuff. And then from there branching out to either a massive machine of some sort or multiple machines. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. And then with that usually comes, okay, well now we jump into the lighting, we jump into the general outlets, setting up offices, stuff like that. I think for the most part, it usually starts with something having to do with machinery install. Kristen, you have anything else on that?
Cool. You know, it's funny when I left my business and became a PM, I felt that it was kind of, in some ways, almost one of the only areas I haven't explored in electrical, like large vertical construction, large commercial builds, government projects. And then in hearing you guys say that, I'm like, you know what? I haven't really been in the heavy machinery and factory builds yet. And maybe my company does that in some way here in Toronto. I'm not sure if they do, but it's something that I definitely want to get my hands in at some point before my career is over. So I love it. And you guys work for SpaceX in a small way. And the only reason I want to bring it up because I saw it, I believe it was on your Instagram, and obviously we're all celebrating the Americans being in space for the first time since we were up there. I guess was it for the moon landing?
I think the last launch was like 9 years ago or something like that.
But in terms of like American-made rockets that without the help of the Russians.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not totally sure. Been a while.
Yeah. So what exactly did you guys do there? Even if it's in a small way, it's in some way it's probably helped them get up there. So I think it's cool.
So it was, I mean, it was a smaller project, but it was a basic conveyor install. They had a need for a conveyor system in there. So we went with another contractor. It seems like we partner with conveyor installation contractors often, where they're doing the mechanical aspect of it and we bring in the electrical. So it was a smaller project, but just kind of being down there, it's kind of exciting because obviously it's this new booming industry and their facility in Hawthorne, now we have multiple customers within they're all within like a 5 mile radius of each other. So we're currently at, another aerospace company who does 3D printing of rocket ships. And that's like directly next to SpaceX, and another company that makes these chambers where essentially they suck all the air out and spin a rocket as fast as it can go until it launches into space. And so we're starting to be involved in bringing power and helping with these various projects where then we get to kind of see a fun end result of a rocket ship going into space. So it's fun.
It seems it almost adds another layer because when I ask people, why do you love construction? And everybody's like, oh, you can drive past that building or that job site and be like, I built that, or you're looking at it, right? But when you build something that's producing an object, or in this case, potentially flying into outer space, that just brings a whole nother level to appreciating your trade and what you're able to deliver society. And I love it. That's really cool. So
Yeah.
Kristen, I wanted to ask you what the origins of Southwest were. Like, how did you guys start? How long you been in business for? Rough size of the company? You give me all the details.
Yeah, so my uncle, he is the C10 contractor and the founder of this company. He actually started when he was pretty young. It was back in, he told me 1978 that he started working as an electrician for another company and basically worked for a while. And then at some point, the owner of that company wanted to go do something else. So him and two other guys took over as partners of that company, bought it out, and worked with them for a while. And then those two guys decided to go do something else. So he was sort of last man standing, and he ended up changing the company name and incorporating it to Southwest Industrial Electric back in 1988. And then it was pretty much him and his wife and my Aunt Laura who ran a group of electricians. And then myself and Alex, we started working here back in about 2005. And I was the first other office person other than my Aunt Laura, who was like the office manager. And then we went along and did a bunch of stuff and got to the point where we are now, which, we have about 50 employees at this point. There's obviously a lot that has occurred since that time. And our major growth has happened after a lot of work to put the sort of foundation in place. As then you'll see, we've sort of grown exponentially for the last few years. And so, yeah, that's where we are now.
Are you guys open shop or are you union contractors?
We're open.
We're open shop. Yeah.
So private, yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Now, like people are probably wondering, how does Kristen go from working in the office to becoming the CEO? And how does
Sure.
Alix get worked into being the CPO? That's some incredible growth. I don't care what anybody says or what size the company is. Like that's a lot to undertake. And I'd be curious to know how each of you got into that position. And the reason why I like to ask people why or what a day in their shoes looks like is if somebody's listening and they're thinking, I want to be a production officer, I want to be a CEO of a trades company. Let's obviously this is electrical, but it's going to be similar, I guess, roles and responsibilities. What exactly you do? So tell me how you got there and give me a typical week or a typical day, what it looks like for you in your shoes at your company.
When I started, I was 18 years old, and because it was my uncle's company and my cousin, his son, was an electrician already here. And as an 18-year-old coming out of high school, he's sitting there going, "Oh my gosh, I'm making money for honestly the first time. And this is amazing. I get to get in a truck every day and go do stuff outside. It's really fun." So I thought, well, sounds good. Let's do this. So I became an electrician. That was 15 years ago. I worked for I think a couple years, but I never really had like this is going to be my career. I played music back then, and it was just kind of like I'm going to do this until music takes off or whatever. And so I ended up actually quitting. And I remember like quitting and being like, I can't do this. I never want to touch a tool again in my life. I hate this job, whatever. I ended up going do another job for maybe 6 months or so. And in that time, I kind of found that like I wasn't making a lot of money. I didn't really have a path. I was kind of lost. I talked to my mom, and I remember telling me like, you got to look at who's the most successful person you know and kind of go attach yourself to them. And at that moment, it was my uncle who owned this company. And I said, you know what, I got to do this. Let me get back into it. I came back, and I remember actually re-interviewing with my aunt, and I like wore a tie to like re-interview to get hired. And so I interviewed with my aunt and said, hey, I want a job again. Came back to work, but I think that second time I had a different mindset about it, that, I saw the potential of an actual career and something I could like really get into. And when I kind of changed that, it made it to where, the hard days weren't that hard because I had a bigger goal in mind. So as I went through my career, I just kind of started obviously learning more and getting onto bigger job sites, and then slowly had people under me on job sites, and I was kind of helping train them. And we just kind of kept growing and growing and growing to the point where I was able to kind of say, oh, well, now I can run multiple job sites. I'm now the production manager. And then as we kept growing, then it actually really started solidifying positions in the company, and organizationally, we really started going. And then it turned into, well, now we have multiple production managers, so I can manage all them. And kind of just naturally got to the position I got to. I mean, naturally with 15 years of hard work, but
Yeah. And I would add to just observing it that, I think also for Evan, who, our uncle, he had, when he was doing this sort of on his own with help from my aunt, like he had a lot of hats to wear and a lot of things to do. So he's a super technical, like now he mainly does the engineering for us. And he's also still involved in a lot of other things in terms of the organization and what we're doing. But that's what he loves. He studies every day. He's here every day. He's the technical guy, and he loves teaching people, and he loves, making sure things are done well. So I think as Alix just sort of taking it upon himself to have the responsibility to go, hey, I can do this. For Evan, it was like, great, good, that's great. Then I can concentrate on this. And he sort of just got himself to that position. I think if people make themselves valuable and really show what they can do, others around them will be like, great, good, do that. Thank you. It helps people out.
Yeah, if you focus on your talents and you work really hard and you prove yourself to be indispensable, I don't think that there's really an excuse to be without a job, no matter the climate or the circumstances. You have to make your own path, choose your own destiny, so to speak. I know it sounds cheesy, but it's true if you follow it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, Alex, you wake up in the morning. What do you do in a typical 8 hour or 10 hour, maybe it's 12? What do you do in a day?
I wake up really early. I wake up around 4 o'clock a.m., get into the
Wow.
office hopefully by about 4:45. Because most of our electricians get here about 6:30 is when they start. Some a little earlier depending on the job site, but I like to have that like first couple hours of the day by myself. Maybe another production manager comes in, but I'm just getting as many emails done, any drawings that need to be done, looking over the previous day's work and kind of making sure everything's lining up and everything got done. So I say that I get in those first little 2 hours, I get more done in those 2 hours than in the last 5 hours of the day because it's just like super focused. Nobody's here, no phone calls, no extra emails, just get it done. And then I'll be here once we have a morning muster with all the electricians every morning. We'll do maybe a little safety training or some announcements. I like to kind of run through with all the guys, go to different crew chiefs and kind of talk about what are you guys doing today. So everybody in the production department kind of knows what's going on and can ask questions and kind of learn from each other and what other guys are doing, what they're working on. And then from there, it's pretty much, going out to job sites, making sure crew chiefs and different job sites are running properly. I'll constantly kind of get phone calls of questions that I need to run down to and take a look at. And then back to the office for the afternoon and continuing with people at the office. We have the purchasing department, the scheduling department, talking to sales about various projects, and then heading on home and seeing my darling girl.
I got one thing I want to ask you before I get into the day to day of Kristen. Is you said that you guys do a morning muster, and I've been involved with organizations when I was an electrician on the tools. Some did it, some didn't, and the ones that didn't were always complaining that it was a cost burden on the company. We're paying these people to be here. Is it really worth it? We don't think it is. Everybody can just go straight to their job site, but I found it super valuable to come in. What's been your experience? Is that something you guys have always done since day one?
Yeah, the same thing where we've actually thought about it or we've seen other contractors where majority of the crews will just meet at the job site, start their time, stop their time when they leave the job site. One thing we found is that if we you know what, yeah, we pay extra because we got to have everyone meet at the same place every morning and now we're paying everybody for drive time to get to the job sites, but it's worth it as an investment because we're keeping everybody on the same page. If there's announcements needing to be made, we're making those announcements. We're able to give little trainings every morning. We're able to kind of start the morning off with a fun, upbeat vibe. So, if someone's just showing up at the job site, you don't know what their story is. And it also makes it to where I might not see people on crews for weeks. And we want to make sure that we are seeing everybody and seeing not just how they're doing in the field or at their job, but how are they doing personally. If a guy kind of looks down, we want to know like, hey, what's going on? Is everything okay? Like that's the environment we've created here. So having those morning musters really is, I can see all the electricians and I can see if I see anybody kind of off, I can kind of go talk to them and just make sure they're okay and that we're moving forward and having a good day.
Love it. Well, we'll get into the culture a little bit later. Kristen, give it to me. What are you up to in a typical day?
Yeah, so similar. I don't wake up that early though, so Alex has me beat on that. But yeah, I mean, obviously my main role is overseeing the company and I'm sort of constantly looking at all areas, from finance to sales to production to our quality control to our public outreach, and I basically every day is different meetings with, the people that run those areas. I'll start my day by going through all my emails and making a list of all the things I need to address. And then I just have various checks. So I always am ensuring that I'm monitoring. We keep statistics of all the different areas. We actually keep it for daily as well as weekly, as well as long term,
Wow.
how much we're billing, how many hours we're producing, the value of the quotes we're delivering, how many quotes are selling. All those statistics we keep, we graph them weekly. And our software program that we use is pretty good. So I can just sit here at my computer and see a lot of information in terms of what's happening where. So a lot of what I do and sort of how tie into how I got to where I am now was I've always been sort of a solver and a troubleshooter of like, why did that go wrong and how do we make it so it's good now? That was what I was always doing from when I first started working here. And it's almost like it was a path I took to just keep being like, wait, that didn't work out or that went wrong. How do I straighten that out? How do I make it so there's like a protocol, a policy in place that will not keep having that happen over and over again? And so I just sort of kept doing that and creating the, like we call it, the lines of the organization and how it's going to go. And through doing that, I just again started taking more and more responsibility for different areas. And then I'd be helping with the sales when I hadn't been doing that before, and helping with this and helping with this. And before you know it, I was doing so many things that, okay, well, we'll call me this now. So I basically gotten to the point where I've gotten each area sort of situated, been able to figure out people to hire in those positions. And then as we keep growing, it's just a constant evolving thing of, good, now that we have this many people in this area, how do we make this all work together well? And if something's not going right, I'll see that and I'll, get with those people and figure out how to tweak it and make it work well. So I pretty much am a troubleshooter, and I fix things.
So there's two things about your career that I want to spotlight. Actually, it's kind of twofold. So you're a female CEO in a construction company, which is rare. So I salute you on that, and props to your organization for supporting that. I'm a really big advocate for diversity in the workplace. I wanted to ask you though, has it been a struggle not coming from an electrical background?
My background before this was I worked in a literacy program, and it was a nonprofit organization for like 5 years, and it was a big thing on like how to learn and stuff. I've always felt like I'm pretty good at learning. And again, I said my uncle is very good at teaching. So it was always just on the job training and self taught as well, in terms of just online study of different areas that I didn't know about. And although I have not done a whole lot of out in the field work, although I have been on a couple job sites and actually helped with jobs that, needed more people doing little things.
Like what? Give me an example of what you've done in the field.
I actually specifically remember you being on a job site like 12
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just like makeup. Like it was just like, sit here and make up these outlets, and then someone would take them and go, good. Okay, you did a good job, check my connections. But I remember, yeah, most of that was done, with it. I don't know. I'd probably been working here for like a few years before I started doing that sometimes, and then I haven't done it in a long time. So most of my knowledge and what I know about is theoretical, but I think I just have been able to learn myself through it. So it really hasn't been hard in that way.
Hmm.
And in fact, I really have enjoyed it, and I think it's really fun to learn, and I've always found it very interesting to be in a technical field like this, where you get to continuously just like upgrade your knowledge level. It's fun.
Yeah. It's important to show people that you don't have to necessarily come from a specific background or education type to be whatever you want to be within an organization. If you have aspirations to be a CPO or a CEO, the world's your oyster. Like we talked about before, if you make yourself available and you soak up that knowledge, you can have whatever you want. Congratulations. It's really cool to see you grow, both of you grow in that organization the way you have,
Thank you.
which leads me into sort of the last piece to your company and its history, I guess, is, do you have like a slogan or a mantra or a catchphrase, and kind of double end that with something people may not know about Southwest?
Sure. I don't think we have like a slogan or a catchphrase, like a just a one-liner to give, but I think that our main sort of motto has always been being a part of our customers' team and here to help, and be part of the solution. I think from the electricians to everyone, scheduling, everyone that helps in the office, we always are going, what does this customer need and how do we help them? And with that view in mind and that purpose, we tend to just get great results and have customers that love working with us because they know, oh, we don't know what to do, call Southwest. And it will sometimes be not even things we really handle or do, but they know we create solutions and that we won't be a problem for them. We're going to be part of their team and helpful.
Yeah. A lot of our customers have managers' cell phones, and I'll get calls all the time, and other managers will as well, from people where it's not even a job that I'm doing for them, or I'm not getting like paid for anything, but they just have that kind of, because we do feel like a partner to them, they'll call and just ask advice and say, hey, I got this project going on and this is what they're saying. Does that make sense? And I'll kind of give them an advice and say, yeah, that sounds good. Or, maybe ask them these questions. And sometimes if I need to, run down to the site and just kind of take a look, if it's something like that, and I'm just willing to help them, they'll appreciate it. And that's kind of how far we'll go to create these partnerships.
Love it. Cool. Is there anything that people wouldn't know about your company? Any of your partners or other trades or GCs that you work with, clients?
I think the one is that people don't know that we are a family business. Like back in the day, it used to be very apparent because there was 5 people that worked here and 4 of them were family members. um, but as we've grown, it's not that like I'm not working directly next to Kristen every day, or my cousin or my aunt or my uncle. So they know it's a family business of some sort. Maybe just they don't know who. And we found like maybe a week ago, one of the people in sales, they've been working for like 3 years here. They just found out that Kristen and I were brother and sister. They've been working here for 3 years. And so that's kind of one of those things where like it's a family business, but most people don't know Evan's my uncle. They just kind of think I'm related to somebody. And there you go.
I've been involved in companies that were probably you guys maybe 10 years ago or so, or I don't know how long ago, but they had a hard time cracking out of what people would view them like the optics of being a family run business. And it gave them issues when it came to scaling because they didn't have that image in the marketplace that we're a lot larger than just a family run business. We're willing to take that leap to the next level, grow our revenues, increase our clientele, take on larger projects.
And I think that is an issue. It definitely is. I mean,
Yeah.
when you're kind of pigeonholed into a family business, most people think of that as, oh, you and your uncle and your sister have 5 people at a company. I can't even offer you a opportunity to bid on this work because you're definitely too small. But there is a benefit to it where we've now gotten to the size where we're able to compete in bids for these pretty major projects. But the difference between us and some of our competitors is we are that large, but when you call to our offices and you deal with our personnel, it still feels like that little 4-person mom and pop shop. You can call Valerie and you can call Virginia and you can call these people and you're going to be treated not like big company. It still feels like that mom and pop shop kind of thing, but we can get big results for you.
Love it. So right now it's COVID. It's been tough. It's been a challenge. I know in Canada, it's been probably less of a burden than it has been down in the US. Just from a numbers and a statistics standpoint, it seems like you guys have been hit pretty hard. I know just from listening to other podcasts in the media that California was on a bit of a lockdown. And I wanted to know, and this is something that I've asked quite a few people over the last few episodes, is what have you learned through COVID or what have you deployed through COVID that you think was an eye opener that you're probably going to keep doing going forward when COVID is over?
I think the main things are, we've been doing a lot of cleaning and a lot of sanitizing, which
Yeah.
is actually really nice. We have our offices probably in like the best condition they've ever been, our trucks in the best condition they've ever been. And I think, we sort of now gotten this routine down that, we have this gets done at this time. We have people that check it, that make sure it gets done, to make sure we're following all the rules we need to follow. And with that, it's something like, I don't see us ever stopping this because this is great. Also, Zoom meetings, like that has been pretty cool because in the past, we have certain meetings that we do weekly. We have a staff meeting with the whole company on Fridays. We have a group electrician training we do once a week, and then we have some other meetings we do. And so we've now doing them all on Zoom calls. And it used to be that, say, electricians were stuck at a job site longer, or someone finished early and went home because they're not going to wait to stay at the staff meeting. People just wouldn't be able to participate. Now it's really like everyone can come every time with the Zoom meeting. So I think no matter what, even if at some point we can gather again and have meetings in person, which of course we would love to do again at some point, we could still have the Zoom meeting as part of it. So people that can't be there can be part of it. And that's pretty cool.
What have you noticed in operations, Alex? Has it slowed down production?
I don't think it's really slowed down production. I think it's just there's a lot more that goes into the day. Obviously, everyone's got to wear masks and everything's got to be sanitized, and you just got to do a lot more. It's just a longer checklist. But I think in our industry, we already have such a checklist for safety and different regulations, anyways, that adding that you got to put a mask on and not shake people's hands and stay 6 feet apart, it's not that difficult. So I think that for the most part, it's just been about it. It's just kind of getting used to those new ways of doing work.
Yeah, and I think for us, it hasn't slowed down in that we still have work going on. We're fortunate enough to work with a lot of companies that are even doing better at this time because we work with a lot of distribution companies and stuff like that that have had their, need for that go way up. So we still have that. It's hard to tell though, because in terms of how much we usually are constantly having a higher and higher demand of work that we need to be doing, where we're constantly hiring and all of that. It's hard to tell at this time of year. Usually, I think we would already be into that. Usually, the beginning of the year is a little slower and then it starts to ramp up. So I do feel like looking at that, possibly it's slower because it's sort of like we're going along. We have work for everybody. We're doing it, but it's not that same like, whoa, we're being hit. We need to get more electricians. We need to hire more, which is usually what happens starting to get to the middle of the year for the last like 3 years.
And that's one of the obstacles that you had wrote in your onboarding form when I sent it to you. And that's something I like to ask people is what are the obstacles that they've had to jump over? And your question wasn't or your answer, sorry, wasn't an uncommon one in terms of growth and finding good staff and retaining people in your organization. And you mentioned that you've had this explosive growth and you're still able to maintain scaling the family atmosphere and the attention to your clients while growing on the outside as a large organization. Like, what does the growth look like? Has it been relatively linear? Has it shot up? And how have you found the staffing side of things? Obviously, you're non-union, so that's a whole different piece because you have to go to the street to find people.
Yeah.
So, like, what have you learned? How has growth looked like, and how are you finding that talent?
Yeah. So back when I first started working here, and for probably about 10 years, I feel like it was sort of in the same plane for quite some time. And I think, like I said earlier, a big part of that was establishing how everything was going to work and things that went wrong, getting that fixed. Like, oh, we just did a bunch of time and material job for a customer we've worked for in the past. We rack up a bill and then they're not paying us and we didn't have any like service agreement or anything, just like little things like that where we go, maybe before we do a huge job, we should always quote it.
Yeah.
Just little things like that we would figure out and we'd go, okay, good. From start to finish, how's this going to go? All of that. And then started establishing it enough that I could get someone to take over certain things I was now doing. Okay, good, I'm going to hire this person. But then, like you said, we definitely would see a pattern with both electricians and people we hired in the office of just not a very good retention rate. So a big thing that I think we realized, Alix and I did this small side business at one point that was selling stuff, and we went to these conventions and it would be like all about leadership and making everyone like excited about having their own business and creating your own path and being in charge of your own success rather than having a boss that's going to decide how much you make and so forth. And through that, we sort of took that information and realized people enjoy being part of something that they feel like they have power in, that they feel like they can affect, and that they are in charge of what they're doing. So rather than people just being employees that are hired and told what to do, we want to get people invested and part of this, and this is their company too, and let's all be a team and do this. So a couple of things, we implemented these personnel meetings we do quarterly where we would meet with people and we would discuss, good, what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? Work out with them where they saw themselves and how they could get there. And sometimes people want to be in some other position that's not even the position they have now. They're like, eventually I'd love to be in finance. Okay, good to know. Let's figure out how we could get you there at some point. But doing that and also finding out, are they having any issues? Are they having any problems? And getting those fixed before they become a big deal, because a lot of people just won't talk about it because they don't feel comfortable bringing it up, because it's hard to bring something, they don't want to be a problem or whatever. So by just giving them that open, like, tell me what's going on. You have any, we directly ask those questions. Are you having any issues? Are you having trouble with anybody or anything? Let's get that fixed. And we figure out solutions with them. And I think implementing that was big for getting people more involved and getting them so that they would stay longer. And after that, we started to see a difference in how long people would stick around. And the second challenge was separating sales and production, because for so long, Evan was both, and it would be that roller coaster that most contractors run into of sell a bunch, do the work. Now we have no work, sell a bunch, do the work. And so we got that separated, with Alix running production and Evan being able to concentrate more on sales. And then eventually I started doing most of the sales. And from there, it sort of just was hiring on good people that were part of the team and wanted to do this. And then they sort of took over their area and started to grow it. And so basically about 3 years ago was when we started just doubling every year in size. And that's where we got the Inc. 5000 awards there for 2 years. And this year we should be getting another one on the list. I think it comes out soon. And I guess to answer the question on finding personnel, we find a lot of people through word of mouth. It's a lot of, again, our people that work here are happy and like it. So they tell their friends, their family, and that's a lot of how we have people working here. And then electricians, Alix, you can tell a little bit about it.
One thing we found with electricians is, obviously, like you said, we're non-union, so we can't call down to a hall and get a bunch of manpower. We do have to kind of find guys and make sure, get them through all the proper training and everything. So we found for a long time that someone would come in and say, I want to be an electrician, and I'd do a little bit of an interview, and there you go. And it sometimes would work out, and sometimes they'd find in the first few weeks, like, oh, I don't want to do this. This is terrible or something.
Yeah.
So that was kind of how it was for a while. And then something we did recently is me and another manager actually started going to trade schools. So we would have someone from the office call a trade school and say, hey, can a couple of our representatives come and just talk about our company to all your students? And so we would go down to like these guys taking a night class, and there'd be like 50 people in there, and they're there 4 nights a week paying to learn how to be an electrician. Like, this is what they want to do. And so we found that like people that are already going that far as to pay for schooling, and they're saying, I want to be an electrician, they're working full days and then going to night school on top of it to become an electrician. Those are the kind of people with drive and really want to do this. So we would just kind of go down there and talk to them about our company, talk to them about our culture, generally just kind of how we operate, the kind of things we get to do, and then, hand out application forms, and we'd get a whole lot of applicants that way. And then we started kind of finding that was a great source of really good, hardworking people. That's kind of the most recent way we've been getting electricians.
Love it. Cool. Now, the other thing that you guys mentioned in there, which is very common, is you sell a bunch of work, you produce a bunch of work, and you either have a backlog or you don't have enough, and you're trying to keep people busy. And I feel that that's a large stress in a construction company. One of the things that has crossed my mind, and in thinking about this as a former business owner and just in general, is if you're to go to like a mid-size or a small size firm and you wanted to purchase them, all you would typically be purchasing is maybe a bidder's list, maybe a building, and maybe a bit of goodwill. And other than that, that's really all you're getting. And one of the things I remember learning early on in business was you want to have some sort of recurring revenue that you could either sell to somebody that wants to purchase your company. Say, look, we've got these 5 clients, they deliver about $3 million a year, we have contracts locked in for X number of years, so there's recurring revenue in this business. And it's hard to find in construction because a lot of work comes through bidding on the work itself and then winning the tender. So I want to know if you guys have found any creative strategies to ensure that you have a constant workflow or recurring revenue streams.
Yeah. So one thing we did find is that we always find that in, I think, January, February, it's always been a slow time of the year for us. And so Kristen and the sales team kind of came up with, well, we do need to start getting contracts, like contract work for those months, particularly, so that we know if we're slow, good, we already have these contracts. We know this is guaranteed work for those months. And the main thing we can do that on is PMIs and infrared scans, because those are two things that for most of our customers need to happen at least once a year. In some facilities, depending on the size, you can get PMI contracts that would be, once a week, once a month, that kind of thing. So in doing that, we're able to kind of line up a bunch of contracts. We know that in January we have 200 hours worth of PMIs to do or whatever it is. Because like you said, other than that kind of thing, most of our stuff is just going to be bid a specific project, and that project isn't going to happen every month for the next 5 years. So.
Right.
Yeah. And the one other thing I would say is we've started to work a little more with certain management companies as well. So that tends to be, even though again, it's not like a contract where we know we're going to have that revenue for sure, but it is something where there is constant maintenance, constant repairs, constant things that they have their clients need, and they're managing it, and they send us the work order to go do it. So that's a pretty predictable thing that occurs where we know we're getting about this many jobs a week from that. So that's another thing. And like we said earlier, we want to build long-lasting relationships with customers that they just, we're going to work with them forever. We have customers we've worked for like 30 years, and we're still working for them, and it's a great relationship. We love them, they love us. It's wonderful.
I gotta ask. I kill myself if I don't ask. What's a PMI?
A preventive maintenance inspection.
Okay, I got it.
So that will be, we usually pair those with infrared scans. Obviously, infrared scanning, we're looking for potential hotspots in machinery and control cabinets and stuff like that, panel boards. And then PMIs are mostly you're going through, torquing everything, you're cleaning out, vacuuming, visually inspecting. And it's huge for some of our customers because some of these factories, they have say 200 people working, and if a piece of machinery goes down, they're just paying by the minute with loss of production and paying all the employees. So for us to come in there and they can, spend maybe a couple $1,000s once every 6 months, we can find those problems before they occur and potentially save them huge amounts of money.
Yeah, no doubt. I was actually involved with a company, and I was the general manager of the division where we did preventative maintenance and infrared scanning. So I know all about that business model, and
Oh, cool.
I'm FLIR certified as well. So I know what it looks like to not point your FLIR camera at the sun or to break it. But
There you go.
cool. So what percentage of your revenue then would you say is on the maintenance and service side of things versus actual construction?
I would say it's probably like a 70 to 30, like 70% of larger projects and 30% service and PMI and so forth. About that.
Okay, that's a good ratio.
Yeah.
It brings up I was talking to, it was one of my early episodes, I believe it was like number 11 or something like that, and it was with a mechanical service company out of Vancouver, and they had actually, one of their creative ways to get through the recurring revenue model was they created basically their own software. So, in working with a management company, like you mentioned, instead of having to pick up a phone or send an email and say, "Hey, I've got an HVAC unit on the roof that's out. I need somebody to come fix it by this day," what essentially it does is it uses geolocation or GPS tracking to see where technicians are, and somebody can just log in through their website through a customer portal, and they can say, I have 5 work orders that need to be fulfilled. And it dispatches out to the closest people in the area. Those people can go fulfill those work orders on their own time because they're setting their own schedule at that point.
Mm.
And then once that service order is complete, they log into the app from their side. They log it complete. They take pictures. They upload any documentation. And then the payment goes right through that software as well. So it's really turnkey. And the management company doesn't have to spend any time going back and forth. They can put forward the work order. The company can pick it up right away, get it done. It's invoiced and collected right away, and all the documentation is up in their portal or profile, and they can download it. So they were able to circumvent that process of having to call all the time to ask for service. It's just, we've created this for you. You just log in and we'll do it for you in the time that you need it done by.
That's cool.
And if we have any issues, we'll let you know, sort of thing.
Oh, that's awesome.
So coming back full circle here to the culture, the diversity, the inclusion that you guys have, you have a very diverse and inclusive workforce. There's a lot of women. I can't remember the exact percentage, but I think was it half that you have working in your company?
It's almost, I think it's about, yeah, like 40% or something like that.
That's awesome, first of all. But was that like a strategy? Is that just the culture you guys are in? And what have you noticed with having a diverse background and workforce within your company? Like, what benefits have you noticed from it?
So I think it's just sort of what has come to be. Like I think it's just sort of how things have occurred. Obviously, with me being a woman and this, construction is a lot of men comparatively. And for many years, I felt like I mainly worked with men and then my Aunt Laura. And I got so into it and so interested, and I thought it was so cool to be in this industry that I think it sort of, as we started to grow and naturally we were looking for more people to hire. And at first I was the one sort of spreading the word about needing people to work here, and then after that, my cousin Elizabeth works here as well. And so I think I sort of got her into wanting to work here. And then same thing, just sort of inspiring to be like, let's do this. This is fun. And then four of our C's are women. So my cousin Elizabeth is the chief operating officer, and then there's my aunt is the chief financial officer, and then Jessica, she's the chief administrative officer. But Jessica was another person that originally she was hired as the receptionist, and it's just one of those people where, again, I think with how I did it, it was sort of like, this is what we're doing, this is how we do it, and just you can step up and take as much responsibility as you want. So it's just like when she started, we were much smaller, and then we've just grown, and she sort of continued to take on more and more. And I think we just sort of ended up having women coming here to apply as well as men. And I think it's great because everyone just comes from different walks of life and they have different views. And you come to our offices and there's definitely a lot of woman's touch around here in terms of what they look like.
Back to the COVID cleaning. This is something we got to keep up, guys.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just cool to have different views, I think, and everyone puts their own thing into what they do, and we all sort of contribute to it, which is great. So it's really fun.
Yeah, and I don't think you should sell yourself short either. You say that it's just kind of the thing that's happened, but it takes an open-minded individual, regardless of what gender they are, to be willing to take anybody based on their qualifications and the skills they have, and not what they look like. We're going through this all sorts of crazy stuff right now in the world.
Yeah,
We've all seen it on the news, and I think it's inspiring to see companies like yourself that they're picking the right fit based on their qualifications and how hard they're willing to hustle, and that's it. And I think that's the way life should be, to be honest.
definitely.
I agree.
We're all for that for sure.
So when I check out your guys' Instagram quite frequently, because A, you pop up, and B, I've had you on my radar for a while, and I've seen like you guys have put a fun spin on COVID. You've done TikTok dances. You've got like awesome pictures of your installations. And I know that if I was down in your neck of the woods and I was looking for a job, that I would probably seek you guys out just based on that fact alone. Like, it looks fun. How have you guys cultivated such a fun atmosphere? Because every time we talk, and we've talked a few times now, you guys seem to have so much gratitude towards the organization you've built and the culture you've built and the people and the empowerment. So how have you managed to keep it so upbeat and fun?
I would say on the electrician side, I know it pretty much does start from the hiring process. When an electrician is going to, or a potential electrician is going to get hired here, they go through a couple people, and then I'm the final person they usually will meet with. And when I meet with them, and I've told guys this time and time, like, I honestly don't care if you even know what EMT is or if you've ever done anything in electrical. We have managers that used to work at Sports Chalet, or one of our lead foremen, he used to be a lifeguard at a local swimming pool. That was his job before this. Like, we can train you. We know that our training program is very proven. So it's really about who you are. Like, what do you like to do? what's your aspirations? What are your goals? And in those conversations from the get-go, I kind of know like this guy, it seems like they'll be fun. It seems like they're getting the whole picture here and they're going to be excited to be a part of it and keep excited. Because in a conversation, you can sit with someone, you can tell pretty quickly, oh, they're just not kind of be with the same vibe that everyone else is. So it might
Yeah.
not work out. So really, it does start from hiring process. And then it does continue with, I think, keeping it upbeat. I tell guys all the time, this is just a job. Really, it is. It's not, no one should be getting hurt for this thing. No one should be getting upset or yelled at or what. We're just coming here to get a good product, have fun with it and go home to our families and, enjoy life. And so I think in doing that, we train all our management that way. We train all our guys that way, that this should be kept light. No one, you're not going to see me on a job site, and I expect none of my managers to be on job sites yelling at people. It's like problems occur. We're a team. Let's make this thing happen and figure out a solution and keep it light and upbeat. And that's how I think on the electrician side, especially, that's just kind of how we keep everybody having a good time, because it should be a good time.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the benefits of having an open shop. I don't choose one or the other. I stand in the middle. I've been on both sides of the fence, but when you're able to actually select the people that you're going to stand beside each and every single day, you're able to screen for the attitude and the fit, the culture fit a lot harder. And you guys, you talk a lot about training. So we've chatted in the past. You've talked about training. You just mentioned that you have training now. What exactly does your training protocol look like? And I'm sure it's quite advanced. So take it in whichever way you want to. But how exactly are you training your people? And are you only training specific people that are showing engagement and interest, or are you leaving it open for everybody to get the training? And kind of, it seems to me like if somebody wants to be in a position in your company and are willing to work for it, that you'll give them that opportunity.
Yeah, I think we train everyone in terms of both office staff and electricians. Everyone starts and they're actually in our training program full time for quite a bit until they reach a certain point in the training program. And then they'll get into working and training. And we sort of keep up a routine of about once a week. People will be scheduled to go to training. Electricians will be a full day of training that they do once a week. And that sort of continues for a while. For electricians, it's a long time. And then they're, apprenticing at the same time. And then for office staff, they do their full training for the sort of office side of things and their position that they're going to be doing. And then they also do the electrician training, as we want them to, again, learn the technical side. We find that if they know the technical side, it's a lot easier to help customers and handle things. If someone's saying, I need blah, 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 it's not just like a jumble of words that they're
Mhm.
trying to write down and not understand. So yeah, it's pretty consistent. And there's certain people, and I guess Alex, you could go a little bit into like with electricians in terms of training leaders.
Yeah, there's definitely, everyone's getting trained, but there are guys who will kind of step up and say, hey, and we talk about it all the time. What avenue do you want to go in? You can go in, troubleshooting department and troubleshoot machinery, or you can go into doing big bid jobs, or you can go into, there's various things you can do here. And I ask all the time because I want to make sure guys are doing what they want to be doing. And we had a guy, at our last company Christmas party, he was fairly new and he kind of pulled me aside and said, hey, I don't know if this is okay, but I really want to get into troubleshooting machines and be in that department. And him like kind of coming up and saying that, it's like, oh, perfect, great. Let's veer all your training towards that. We ended up putting him into our lead specialist truck. He's been here for 30 years. And this technician got to ride with him for 2 months, just being on site and watching him troubleshoot and learning from him every
Wow.
day. And then he did that for a while. He started, when we'd have a late night, service call. So someone calls at 2 a.m. with a shutdown. One of our lead technicians would go, but we would call the apprentice and say, hey, service call, get up, let's go. And he would go and meet them on the job site just so he could continue to get used to that. You can get used to that environment where, you're tired, but you're making things happen. And so it didn't take it, 5 months later, he's in a service call truck and he's doing service calls and he's taking emergencies at night. And so we definitely have guys like that as well, where they step up and they say they want to do something. I love that attitude. And I say, let's go, let's make this happen for you. So it's worked out for a lot of guys like that as well.
You know what's funny is Kristen, you mentioned that even the office staff gets trained.
Yeah.
And that's rare because I've actually heard more than one person tell me that they purposely don't train their office staff to be electrical literate because it depends on the organization. But if you do a lot of maintenance, you don't want to be solving a customer's problems over the phone. You want to be going there and collecting the check.
Sure.
And I get it. I get people's thirst for revenue and wanting to get out there and keep their people busy. But I think it's also important that when somebody calls, they understand that they're talking to a company that knows what's going on and their problem's going to get solved. So you guys have this, like, it seems like an elaborate training program. Can you break it down a little bit for me? Because I'm not sure exactly what the training looks like in the US, but in Canada, it's 4 years. Each year you go to school for 10 weeks. After you reach a certain amount of hours, depending on your province, then you can go write your ticket.
That ticket word. We're like, what does he mean by ticket?
Yeah. So I'm looking here.
Certification.
I got my certification on the wall right here, my electrical certification. It is what it's called. We call it our ticket. I don't know why. A
Yeah.
red seal.
Yeah, it's a ticket to somewhere, to your career.
Yeah. A ticket
Yeah.
to financial freedom and no
Yeah.
student loans.
There you go.
Nice.
So what exactly do you guys do for your electrical training? Like once a week seems like a crazy amount. I've never heard that before.
Yeah, I mean, and I'll let you talk, but it's basically we've sort of created our own program that's like these checklists that people go through, and they come with like a pack of material, videos that go along with it. They study things, and then they do practice things in our shop. So there'll be a whole checklist that's dedicated to lighting repair, say, like that's just like one of the ones throughout the whole thing, but it's taking it from just the basics of electricity and understanding what electricity is and amperage and voltage and all that kind of stuff, and then it's taking it through just the different subjects of every single thing through power systems. But on the lighting repair one, they'll practice in shop with troubleshooting a light fixture and replacing ballasts and lamps and all of that. And we basically go through that for everything all the way to motor control. It's all the way through. And so it's pretty extensive on both the technical side, but we also have a lot of just basic practice ones that are just sort of how we operate and how to do this and how to do that and how to do this to be like a successful all-in-one. We sort of tell electricians, it's your own business. There's PR to it, the administrative side of keeping track of everything. There's how you handle the job and your cleanliness on the job, all of that stuff we have in there as well. So it's pretty extensive, and they do that along with working in the field and apprenticing under guys. So then, and similar, they have to then do that for a number of hours to get to the point where they can take the exam for certification. And I think it's 8,000 hours, right, Alex?
Like that, yeah. It's been a while since I was back there.
I'm picturing Alex standing in his tool belt in front of a camera, like teaching people how to splice lights. So because what we found is we would get into these situations where we needed to hire a bunch of guys, and we would hire, someone as an apprentice, and they'd do some basic, safety training and stuff like that. And then it'd be like, good, go in the field, good luck. And the foreman would get him and be like, great, run me this conduit. Never touched conduit before. Okay, now we have a lot of training in the field, and that foreman he needs to be running this job site. So we kind of cut back and said, good, when we hire someone as an apprentice, no matter what their training level is already, because they've gone to school or whatever, they're going to go through our training program. And usually it's about 2 weeks full time in our shop. And with that comes all the basic stuff, but we have a full wall that we do mock pipe runs and stuff. And in doing it that way, it's not just like, here's the how to bend conduit manual, good luck. It's, you're going to watch videos, you're going to have an instructor down there with you for multiple days. And we have allotted times. So you'll get like a diagram, and it'll say, here's the pipe run. It shows you what the pipe run should look like in the finish. And it says, this needs to take you 2 hours and 6 minutes. That's what we would have bid it for. And then it's timed. And the electrician can do it and say it took him 3 hours. Then we can look at it and go, good. So here's some things you need to correct. Let's try it again. And they can kind of continue to where they're doing conduit runs in timely manners. And that way they get, finally, after a couple of weeks, they get given to a foreman. He has something to work with. He can give them basic stuff, and then give them a little, then he can start instructing, but at least there's all the basics there. You guys are setting the foundation.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's so important too that you're training them on your way. Like this is how we want to come across as our organization, because electrical school you get the basics, and I think that there's a lot of curriculum that should be incorporated, but there just isn't the time and probably isn't the faculty capacity to be having that in-depth training. I know that we have a pre-apprenticeship program out here. Do you guys have pre-apprenticeship in the U.S.?
Yeah, we have a whole bunch of different programs. We have a lot of different trade schools people go to. But like you said, I've seen we have a lot of guys coming from trade schools. Some are even still in trade schools, and I'll ask them like they've been there for 3 years, and what are you learning compared to what we're teaching you? And for the most part, I think because we are so in depth and we have an instructor one on one with these guys, I think they just get a lot out of it. I think the trade schools definitely give them a lot of good basics, but like you said, going in more in depth with it kind of gives them a better in-field understanding of what they're doing.
Great, love it. So with all of this being said, obviously, do you guys have any opportunities that are on the table right now? If by some chance somebody in your neighborhood is looking for work, are you guys currently hiring?
Yes, we are. For administrative posts, we have a couple things open. We're looking for someone in our training department. So having a background in electrical would be great. Again, we have our own training program though, so we can train people. And that's just helping with the guys in training. Then we have some people in the administrative roles that's in our tech services department. So that sort of areas like purchasing and paperwork sort of for the electricians. We're looking for a sales like account manager. And there's I think a couple other ones. So definitely inquire. Electricians are always welcome. We do have a bit of a wait list at this point, but we always are looking for good people. So, if you're interested in that, you can definitely check us out. The easiest way is just to go to southwestelectric.com. Check us out.
Love it. Guys, is there anything I left off the table that you want to talk about or bring up before we get into some closing parts to the podcast?
I think we covered quite a bit.
Yeah, I think it was good. It was great. Thank you.
Yeah, I've had so much fun just talking to you guys. This has been great. So,
Yeah.
this is something new that I've been rolling out because it's things that I think are important, questions I like to ask people, sort of the pros and cons and things that we need to work on as an industry, as a community, because it truly is a community. And I call it let's end it with three. The first thing is, what do you think the industry does really well or is really good at? And this is construction in general.
I would say something I noticed that is done very well is the innovation in safety and tools. Because I constantly, that's all I love doing, looking at, what's the new Milwaukee tools and what's DeWalt got going on and this and that. And one thing I'm noticing is over the years, back in the day, things were a little more dangerous. All the tools were a lot more labor intensive and which would cause more injuries on site and just not quite a safe work environment. And I feel like that's kind of how the construction industry got its name of just ragtag kind of hard industry. But over the years and now even more these days, I feel like the whole industry as a whole is getting safer. People are figuring out new ways of doing things that make it easier on the body. They're smarter, they're faster, and it really comes from all the new tools coming out, stuff like that. So I think that's a big part of kind of the growth of the industry and making it kind of a more fun and safe work environment.
Awesome. Now let's flip it on its head and see, what do you think we could do better? What do you think needs to change about construction right now?
I think we run into some situations where we are bidding against other contractors. I think probably a lot of contractors are not this way, but there still are the contractors out there that don't necessarily aren't as honest or responsible for their work as they could be in terms of, when we go and we see a customer, they tell us what they're looking to do or what needs to happen. We're always looking at it from the professional standpoint of how does this need to go for them to actually have that happen, when maybe they tell us we just want to do this and we go, okay, that's not going to work though, we're going to need to do A, B, and C to make this work, versus they'll get another bid for say half of what we did that's doing exactly what the customer asked for, but that's not going to work in the end, or it's not going to work well. And I think if all contractors were really just totally honest and responsible with being the professional, what people need, and giving them that and pricing it that way, and sort of standing up for good work and honest work, that would be awesome. I think we go sometimes above and beyond on that point where we've actually had it where like auditing our invoices and we find somehow we overcharged a customer, and we'll call them 6 months later and tell them, so we were just auditing our books and I am so sorry. We ended up double charging you on this service, and they paid it for some reason. And they'll just be like, oh my gosh, like just astounded that we would call and tell them that, because it's so not normal that people are going to be that honest. And I would just love to see that, and that name in the industry of just like how good, helpful, and honest contractors are.
That is a recurring theme that has come up since day one with everybody I've talked to is ethical contracting, being
Yeah.
the ethical person. And you know what? It's tough because the unethical way is the short-term financial gain. It's really easy to underbid a job, change order the shit out of it, overbill your client and not say anything. Just all of this stuff leads to, wow, look at how well we're doing, until you start to lose those recurring contracts with those recurring customers because they found out what you really like in the end. And you can't scale an unethical model. I don't care what anybody says, it's not worth it. And I think that a lot of people have the same perceptions. And I think if we can band together as an industry and figure out creative ways of leveling the playing field and comparing apples to apples and ensuring people are ethical, it's going to also help my mission with this podcast, which is changing the optics of the industry, which is we're a rough and dirty bunch, and we're gonna charge you a lot of money, and we're not going to do what we say we do, and that's kind of the general perception of the industry sometimes.
Yeah. Agreed. Agreed.
Guys, is there anything that you would like to ask? Something that you would like anybody listening to action on? It could be anything.
I would say, I think anybody listening to this obviously is interested in the construction industry or that kind of thing. I think that people need to promote the trades more. I think the society we live in nowadays, everybody wants to become a millionaire tomorrow and be a part of the next big app or an influencer or something, and that's fine. But people growing up, coming out of high school, kind of saw that this industry, being an electrician, a plumber, a welder, all these different trades, they're really rewarding jobs. They're really rewarding careers. I think most people don't understand how much money is in this business of construction. Like there are a lot of millionaires in the construction industry. You don't have to just, have invented Twitter or something like that. But I feel like that message hasn't gotten to younger people. And I think that there's been a lot of studies that people getting into the trades is lessened and lessened over the years. So that's the main thing I would want people to kind of go out there, and if you are in the trades, you should be expressing how fun it is and how cool it is to all these people. And if a young kid coming out of high school is asking like, what should I do for a living? Give it a try. It's something fun. It's hard work, but it's worth it. And I think that's people to take with this thing.
Love it. And if anybody is sitting around on a laptop and it's COVID and you realize that you're not going to have that remote work from home life and you want to get outside and have some fun, the trades are definitely for you. And one other thing to just double back on the millionaires in construction. The funny thing is, and that's part of the reason why I started the podcast, is there's not enough clout. Like you don't get clout being a large construction owner because nobody celebrates you, nobody talks about you. You're not really in the media too often. You're not influencing tons of people by creating addictive products that they can log into on their phone every 5 minutes. But you're building the infrastructure that the world needs to support its office staff, its housing, its businesses, and sending people to the moon, to Mars, wherever they
Sending
happen to
people
go.
to space. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So if you want to send people to space and have some fun, and you're in Southern California, head over to Southwest and put your name on the waiting list. And guys, I've had a blast talking to you. I really appreciate everything you guys are doing for the entire industry, the way you train your staff. I look up to you guys, and I hope that others do as well. And you're truly role models in the construction industry. And it's been a blast. And thank you so much for coming on. And the last place is, you mentioned your website. Where can people find out more information about Southwest? What are your social handles if you know them offhand, and just any other further contact information?
Oh man, you're asking me my social handles. I should know these things, shouldn't I? But on Instagram, we're at Southwest Industrial Electric. Like I said, the website, southwestelectric.com. And that actually has links to all, we're on everything, LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. You can actually catch some of Alix's tutorials on there, some of his training videos.
Nice.
And we've sort of started to ramp that up a little more. So there's going to be reoccurring content coming out more and more with training and things you can learn there. But yeah, that's how you'll find us.
Cool. And I will obviously, I build pages for anybody that hasn't checked out my website. It's toolspodcast.com. I build a custom show notes page for every guest, and I like to spotlight their videos if they have them, their contact information, their bio. It's got links to everything we talked about. It's got a synopsis of the episode, the transcript. So if you're interested in more information and you're having a hard time finding it, toolspodcast.com. And guys, thank you so much for coming on and partaking in the tools of the trade.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much. It was great.
That's fun.
Wonderful podcast.
That's a wrap. That's a wrap, everybody.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Tools of the Trade podcast. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and leave us a 5-star review. For show notes, blog posts, resources, and access to our newsletter, check out toolspodcast.com.